Bitcoin is trading around $87,000 and officially closed 2 weeks below the 50-week simple moving average, which historically speaking puts us in a bear market. Now, I kind of want to cover what I think is going to happen next, and I think it's going to be a very pivotal week. So before I get into the content, make sure you subscribe, smash the like button, turn on your bell notifications. Everything I say here is very time sensitive. Now, there's this huge thing going on with specifically MicroStrategy, JPMorgan, where it kind of came out that JPMorgan has a massive short position against MicroStrategy. And so a lot of people are basically coming together. They're like canceling like their bank partnerships with JPMorgan, like they're withdrawing all their cash. And there's this huge like camaraderie kind of, scenario that's kind of going on. And I'm here for it. I think that, obviously JPMorgan and Jamie Dimon, they've been kind of like trash talking Bitcoin for basically like the last like 10 years. And they've kind of gotten exposed for like mining Bitcoin and just kind of like scaring away retail, saying that Bitcoin is worthless. And now they're trying to like partner with basically like Coinbase to offer it to their customers and all this kind of stuff. But they don't like Bitcoin because Bitcoin goes against everything that the banking system stands for. And they're pretty much really intertwined when it comes to the whole like the Fed creation. So, you can kind of do your own research and kind of like look back and look at the ties when the Federal Reserve was created, and basically its ties to JP Morgan and a lot of other stuff that I don't really want to get into, but I think it's going to be very weird and telling how this kind of like shapes out. Now, getting back into crypto, obviously there's a lot of bearish stuff going on. We have OG whales selling all their Bitcoin. There's a lot of just like negative price action, a lot of uncertainty when it comes to these like rate cuts, the macro environment, all this kind of stuff. And so while I think that it is pretty bearish that we've closed below the 50 simple week moving average, which is right now, I think it's around like 98 to about $100,000 right now per Bitcoin. I still think that there's a good chance that we're going to continue this rally up, and I have a few reasons behind that. One of the main things that I kind of want to bring your attention towards is every single cycle, there's always like this like massive downturn that's usually around 33%. And, obviously the timing with everything is it's all kind of coming together to where the people that are of the belief that the 4-year cycle is kind of like coming and going, they're pretty much like washed out, right? They sold all their Bitcoin, like they're convinced that the 4-year cycle is still intact. We have basically a record number of liquidations, right? We've had a huge deleveraging. All the traders that were long, they've all gotten wiped out. And so to me, what makes the most amount of sense is I think that the market makers need to basically send the price in the opposite direction so that they can liquidate these short traders. Now, there's also this other sort of thing going on behind the scenes where basically the United States, they seized like 100,000 Bitcoin from basically this like pig scam slaughter kind of like scandal. And there's also some kind of like trafficking going on, but I can't really talk about it on this platform. You can kind of do your research. It's going around crypto Twitter right now. And there's a lot of speculation that all of these accomplices that were also part of this whole like organization, they were basically just like, panic selling their Bitcoin because they don't want to get their assets frozen. And so I think that to me makes the most amount of sense as to why like we've had such crazy price action, because it's not uncommon like after these 4-year cycles to shape out that we see these massive drawdowns or we go into this bear market, but it doesn't really shape out this way, like where it's just down only for like a straight month. Like usually there's some sort of bounce that's put in because traders, they want to trap these traders both in the short and long positions, and so they need something to convince them, or maybe not even fully convince them, that the cycle's over. And so I'm still in the camp that yes, from a technical analysis standpoint, everything looks completely horrible. It looks like we're in a bear market fundamentally, and like in the macro environment, the bigger picture, I think that you can make a lot of reasons as to why the cycle is not over and why this could just be a massive shakeout and just a very unfortunate series of events. Now, obviously hindsight's going to be 2020. So this is going to, things remain to be seen, but I'm still in the camp. Like I'm putting my, this is my opinion. This is my kind of prediction. I would not be surprised to see us hit, at least around 98 to about $100,000 Bitcoin, probably within the next like week or so. And that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. We're just going to be testing that 50-week simple moving average. And I think if we can somehow flip that into support, I think that it's a pretty good bet that we're going to go into the 106 and 107 range, which is the main area that we need to crack. And I think if we can do that, we have a really good shot at going back to all-time highs and then just continuing on from here. Now, a lot of things have to kind of come together. One of them being that we need Fed interest rate cuts. We need to have the quantitative easing kind of come to a resolution. I don't even know where to begin, right? Like this whole like Michael Saylor and like JPMorgan FUD, like this needs to be ironed out. Hopefully we get like some kind of like GME, like gamma squeeze, because basically JPMorgan is going to lose like tens of, or if not hundreds of billions of dollars if there's like some massive like short squeeze because of their short position against MicroStrategy. So that's like a good catalyst in my opinion that could happen. I don't really know if that's all confirmed yet, so we'll see. What else? We need the stock market. They need to kind of like stabilize. We need all that to kind of continue to rally. I'm still of a camp that they're also going to put in another massive leg higher. And so I think that things look really bullish for at least the end of Q4. That's always been my base case. I think that next year is going to be very shaky depending on how kind of inflation shakes out and how the general markets kind of react. But I can't imagine that the administration that's so like pro crypto, they all care about basically the stock market and like real estate and all that kind of stuff. They have to look really good for midterms, and they can't have basically they live and die with like, you know, having a great economy, stock market all-time highs, and they're like the Bitcoin administration. So I find it very hard to believe that they're just going to let all those, you know, all the prices and everything just get so bad. Not to mention that the Fed basically U-turned when they noticed that the stock market was just crashing, because they can pretend like they don't care about the stock market prices, but that's going to really send us into a recession if they start to like, you know, plummet and we go into this like massive like downtrend, because they have basically the dual mandate where they need to keep jobs pretty much intact and they need to combat inflation. And they're not really doing either, in my opinion. They're doing a pretty bad job. I think that they should have cut interest rates a long time ago. So I do think that they are going to cut interest rates overall. So again, I am going to remain bullish. I think that the invalidation that I would have is if we go below $75,000. If we close that like on a weekly or even more importantly, like a monthly basis, and that would kind of be like game over, I think, for the bull market. That's a pretty hefty price for the price to drop though. So I'm not sure that that's really going to happen. I think that something catastrophic would have to occur in order for that to be solidified. Again, we can totally wick down there, and as long as we come back up, then that should be okay. But $75,000 is basically like the line in the sand where we remain in a bear market on a higher time frame basis. So again, I think that that would be the key level to watch. And, you know, bullish side, I think if we can get to around $100,000 and trade up towards like 105, that's going to be very good. And obviously I post every day, so I'm going to update you guys with what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing in the markets, and just, you know, answering your crypto questions. So that being said, hope you like the content. Make sure you're subscribed, turn on your bell notifications. Obviously everything in crypto is very time sensitive. So with that being said, comment anything below with what you want me to cover next, and I'll see you next time. Bye.